All right, ready to get going?
We are, I guess. Okay, it's fired out. Okay, I think Rachel has already made enough introductions, but I come from a 40-year career in education. I started out as an English teacher because English is my major, literature is my passion, and then, you know, you ascend the ladder to become a leader. But what is a leader? This is a very important question. Is it a boss? Is it someone who goes around and gives orders and that's it? Even nowadays, I feel that there's a misconception about leadership. Now, I'm talking from the educational part, and Mr. Sawan here comes from the corporate side. So I'm going to trigger some important questions here because we really have a lot of problems with the corporate or CEOs because most of the, if you live in the MENA region, most of the owners of private schools are businessmen who don't come from an educational background. So they're very practical, very business-oriented. Can I ask you, Mr. Sawan, if being compassionate as a CEO in your company, are you compassionate, a compassionate leader?
I would like to think so, but you know, it's one of those things where you can't write the exam and award yourself the marks. So I think it's one's team will best be able to say if one is compassionate or not. But I try my best, and I hope my team and colleagues and people who work with me feel it. But I think you know, if you look up the word compassion on Google, you would say that it says having the ability to express care for someone's situation or someone's misfortune. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like looking at the glass half full, half empty, right? I think a better word is, you know, a benevolent leader. So if you look up the definition of benevolence, it's, you know, it says bene in Latin comes from good, yes.
I studied Latin.
Oh, there you go. And velle is to wish. Mm-hmm. So it is to wish someone well. Mm-hmm. And I think a benevolent leader is one, you know, who is deeply invested in the success of others. And I think that's the essence of, you know, our topic today. And it's very rare because, you know, rarely do you find that caliber of leader who success for whom is helping others become successful. Correct.
And you help others to become leaders as well.
Correct. I think leadership in that essence is about, if you were to boil it down, it would be about helping your people and your teams win. And that process is not always glamorous. In fact, it's full of pain and sacrifice because there's an element of, you know, them being able to coach. And a coach is not someone who's going to patronize you. They have to show you your limitations, and then they have the expertise to be able to move you past those limitations. So,
or even provide you with some professional development to move on if you can't.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, that would be the process.
Actually attending, I think it was the first day, it was a panel discussion, understanding learning. And they were talking about being part of a team is very important and providing strong sense of safety and that together they achieve more. Now, the sense of safety, we don't only mean the work environment, but the culture of the organization, be it a school, be it a company, or any other entity. So in your view, how do you provide that as a leader? What sort of facilities or what sort of benefits do you provide? And I don't mean benefits in terms of money and that wise, but I mean, what sort of benefits do you actually give your employees?
Well, you know, that's you've brought it up so well, that they provide an environment that's psychologically safe for them to be able to, excuse me, feel vulnerable enough to be able to grow. And I think compassionate leaders or benevolent leaders, from that aspect, from that perspective, have two things that I've seen across organizations. The first is that they enjoy a very high level of trust. And the second is that they are very aligned with the objectives or the outcomes that the teams have to achieve. So if you put these on an axis, then you have trust on one side and you have, let's say, alignment on the other axis. So that gives you four choices. One is in the bottom left-hand corner, where you have low trust and low alignment. That would be somebody who's like a mercenary. You know, and we've met people like this, where they're doing the bare minimum to stay employed so that nobody can point a finger at them. And then if you go up to the top left-hand quadrant, you will see it's someone who's a good citizen. They enjoy the trust, so people perceive their intention as clean and clear, but they're not always inspiring. They don't have that ability to lead and drive. Right.
Okay.
And if you come to the bottom right-hand quadrant, that would be somebody who's a pirate. They are very aligned with the outcomes that need to be achieved. They feel that they will also win if the team will win, but they don't always enjoy the trust, which means they don't always delegate power. They want to hold on to it. And the place that they are coming from is not transparent. And promoting such people becomes a problem. Their promotability comes into question.
It's a great liability. I mean,
it can be. It can be if they don't course correct.
Exactly.
And the fourth, the top right-hand quadrant is where they enjoy a very high sense of trust and are very aligned with the objectives of the team. And those are the people who act, in that manner where, their success is dependent on making others successful. Because may it be the classroom or I think even beyond, you can't claw your way to the top of an organization. You have to be carried there. People must choose
nice
you
way of putting it, yes.
Right. People must choose you to be the leader because of who you are as a human being. They know that you're invested in them and that you care from a place of tremendous, sincerity.
But there is always that human element of why should this person be the leader and not I? Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
It's like, I could be a leader just like the next, just like you, so why not me?
Well, in your case, I think you could be, possibly even better. But I understand the perspective with which you were bringing that up.
Human nature.
Right,
yeah.
yes. And that's the problem with an unhealthy ego. And there's a statement that I once read that when ego comes, everything goes.
That's
and
true.
when ego goes, everything comes. So it's very important to have that awareness because I think the road to career development, it's paved with personal development. If you don't have the ability to accept feedback, to look inwards, then you're not going to be able to grow. And I think great leaders, compassionate leaders do that really well because they've done it themselves and they know how to pass this process on to people that they are working with and helping them become a leader.
And they would know those who would not be fit.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, they'll be able to diagnose and spot where they might be, off track.
Right. Okay. And as background, coming from a background of schools, we always believe that there has to be a school culture, a culture of beliefs and rituals and certain traditions that are aligned with a school. Do you have the same thing in corporates?
The alignment you're saying?
Yeah.
Yes, very much. I think it's about
the culture of your company. There's a certain culture that brings you all together. There's a sense of belonging.
Right.
Yeah. Family
Yes,
sort of.
I mean, the organization must have a defined set of core values, and there isn't any one, specific set of core values. They're different for every company. They're different for every human being. I mean, somebody values their health and fitness the most. Somebody values family and friendships the most. Somebody values their business and finance, their careers the most. So there isn't a right answer here. But I think if you look at how do people express care for one another? So they project their values, what is important for them, their priorities onto you, and we do the same. We project our priorities onto others because they say that if you live your life according to me or according to what I'm saying, you will have a more fulfilling experience of life. They are doing it with the intention of creating harmony, but often it creates disharmony, right? Because
you're not cloning people. You're not.
Yeah, you can't ask a cat to behave like a fish. If a cat keeps thinking I can't swim underwater, then it'll drive itself insane. So it's very important to know your priorities, because when you're aligned and congruent with your priorities, you awaken your leadership capacity, and you begin to radiate outwards. You improve your energy, and I think compassionate leaders know how to help somebody learn that process, because if you look at it from the perspective of motivation, motivation doesn't last. It's like the drug of the feel-good world. Every time you're going to need a bigger dose, and you're going to need it more frequently. So motivation is actually feedback that you are not aligned with what is most authentic for you. And if you don't take the time to discover what is most authentic for you, then you will keep seeking that validation and needing motivation. But when you are aligned and congruent with what is your priorities, then you don't need to depend on external motivation. It's kind of like if you see a child play video games, the child does not need an external source of motivation to keep playing video games, right? They'll play for 6 hours, 8 hours, and till the parents say, you're going to hurt your eyesight. Stop the screen time, and they will they will welcome even the challenges in the journey. So if the device runs out of batteries, they'll find a way to get batteries out of the remote or out of the clock or wherever. So it's very important to be aligned with what is your priorities. And compassionate leaders do that really well. They help you uncover your true self, your authenticity from that perspective.
We believe as educators, or let me say as teachers, that inside the classroom, each student is a leader in some way or another. Even those who are, as learners, whose capabilities are less than others, but they are leaders in some other way. So that's why we try to promote their leadership skills in what they perfect. That's how we help the generations to become leaders and to understand where their points of strength are, have self-confidence and self-motivation, rather than be dependent on others, as you were saying, to motivate them.
Right, right.
Okay, so I found this recipe, Chairs for Success, says compassionate leadership shapes the culture of the organization. And if you have a culture, it shapes the learning and behavior. And that goes for companies as well. We learn, and I'm sure your employees learn from that.
Absolutely. I think it's the hand that rocks the cradle is the hand that shapes the world. So,
Right. So leadership and culture actually shape the identity and the sense of belonging, we're saying, or the culture of the organization that we would like to have. And be it a school, university, a workplace, or anything else. Okay, this is a sort of a brain teaser for our audience. We need some engagement, okay? So, what is a school culture or a company culture that is all show and no go? Promises are made, but not fulfilled by your leadership. What would you call such a school or such a culture? I'm going to come down with the microphone. Or actually, the microphone is right there. All show and no go. Toxic culture, right? Okay. Anything? Any other metaphoric label for that? Sorry? Fake. Good. What about a circus? It's all show, no go. Okay. What about this school culture is viewed as unpredictable. Tension and stress abound. People may view it as a prison. Madhouse. Madhouse, yeah, I like that. Okay. And the next one is important element is the concern for each other. And staff communicate with students, and their culture is common. In this type of culture, the principal makes a commitment to the stakeholders that everyone will be treated with respect and with their best interest at heart, just like Mr. Sawan was saying here. So what type of culture would that be? Inclusive is nice. I want a more warm word for that. Gives warmth. Sorry? Forest? No. No. Sorry? Yeah, well, commitment is part of that culture, but there's a sense of safety and ease. Exactly. Family culture, sort of like family culture, homey, comfortable. And the last one is where the principal or the CEO would be is more focused on management issues and getting things done, regardless about how or what is going to happen to the people there. What type of culture would that be? Exactly. A machine sort of culture. Yeah. Okay. So here are the answers for your does this need battery? There we go. Family culture is the one where principal cares for everyone, or the CEO cares for everyone. There's a safe environment. And then we have the machine culture, just like you said now. The circus is the all show and no go. And the little house of horror, where it is unpredictable what is going to happen to me today. Okay, so Mr. Sawan, could you wrap up the elements of a safe environment that the compassionate leader provides for his employees?
Yeah, I think if you look at it from a perspective of the elements, at least in the corporate side, you're looking for a place where, let's say, first of all, the environment should be enthusiastic. Because only when you attempt things from a place of enthusiasm will you begin to develop a meaningful connection with things. So, and it's not a one-size-fits-all. I'm just giving some general thoughts. You must be challenged You must feel you're working on something that is bigger than yourself. Because when you find that zone of, that groove of enthusiasm, then you begin to develop a more meaningful connect with the work that you're doing. And only when you find that meaning will it at some point turn into a commitment, because the commitment will keep you going, even when things get challenging. And that is commitment is a fundamental to achieve excellence in anything. So I think that's very important. The other thing that I've always looked for, in corporate cultures is to have a differentiated platform. That means if my work is better than others, then my reward should also be better than others, right? My individual contributions should be valued. It's not at the cost of others. Of course, that doesn't mean that you have to operate in a manner where it's a win-lose dynamic. It has to be a win-win dynamic.
You actually encourage others to reach
Correct,
that.
correct, absolutely. Another thing that I look for is a sense of ownership, where the organization can provide you the authority and the power to take decisions, which essentially means that it should be okay to fail sometimes. They have the ability to be able to separate the human being and the failing event. Because I think that's truly a stepping stone to growth and to progress. And I find that, in the system of education and also in corporate cultures, bosses and leaders are not very tolerant of failure. They don't encourage mistake making. In fact, a child feels scared that if I make a mistake, I will be reprimanded. So I think that is very essential, because failure is going to help you become the masterpiece that you're meant to be if you understand the strategic value of failure. Everything is on the way and not in the way. And that's something that really needs to be understood, because the lotus will only blossom in the mud. Right? So failure is not your enemy, it's actually your friend. And if you understand its strategic purpose, you cannot let that failure define you, because if you failed 5, 7, 10, 50, 100 times, that doesn't make you a failure. These were some episodes in your life where you didn't do well, but you gained the experience. So it should allow you to become better and not bitter. So, because that's the journey to getting to the top of the
But not everyone
organization.
or not all leaders have the tolerance to accept those failures.
Yes, and great leaders are not looking for who to blame. They're not looking for saying things like "I told you so," or a mistake was made by someone. Everybody gets together to start fixing the problem, and these are the marks of a healthy culture and of a leader that is showing in reality that they are invested in the development of the people that they work with. Okay,
let me tell you a case, and I'd like to have your input in that. One of the schools I was a consultant to, there was a problem with the CEO. There was a great gap actually, and the management or the principal of the school, where the leader was very compassionate, working for the teachers, getting their rights and making sure they know the responsibilities. But then came this element of the business factor, and the CEO didn't like that the leader is, the CEO considered that the leader is on the teacher side, staff side, not on my side to make money. So what happened was he let that leader go. Now it's literally a house of horror, because they do not know or predict what is going to come next. What would be, in your view, as a CEO, the solution for such case? And we see that a lot in the Middle East.
I mean, in this particular case, it could be a multitude of reasons. One that comes to mind immediately is that it could be a communication problem. Yes, of course, businesses at the end of the day are in it for the profit, in it for the money, and that is important. But it is important to define that for the people that you're hiring. When people are on the same page, then you minimize such instances. So there has to be a balance that that organization has to create in, what are some of the decisions they are taking to make themselves more efficient from a cost perspective or improve their profitability, and at the same time. And I personally, I think, the actual relationship between delivering quality and cost is actually a inversely proportional relationship. The higher the quality, the lower the cost. It's not the higher the quality, the higher the cost. I see it as the higher the quality, the lower the cost.
That's misunderstood.
It's misunderstood.
Because the higher the quality, or the higher the quality of teachers you hire, will be the higher salaries you give.
Correct.
But they don't see behind that.
Right. The overall expansion, the overall scale that will be able to deliver, the overall productivity that it will be able to create as a system will be stronger if that's paid attention to. I can't fully say in the schooling system, because my experience and expertise doesn't lie in that.
The same,
but I can tell you from a corporate perspective, if you look at industries, whether they are service industries or a service industry or a product industry, there are so many sectors that have proved this, that the higher the quality, the lower the cost.
Yeah, that's the
So.
same. Okay, now we only have less than 10 minutes. So to wrap it up, because I want to give 10 minutes for the Q&A session, leadership, heart and brain.
Leadership, heart and brain.
I mean, you have to be compassionate, but yet you have to have, of course, you have to be, there's commitment, there are decision makers, so there's the brain and the heart. They have to be all aligned in order for you to be a successful leader.
Absolutely, absolutely. There is a place for intuition, there is a place for feelings, there's a place for emotions, and at the same time, there's a place for logic, there's a place for creativity, there's a place for the financials, the numbers, if you will. So all of that has to come together for one to have the skills, to turn into or to evolve into a leader. So
most importantly, in any organization, the sense of belonging, a safe environment, a safe working environment, is what will have your employees or your staff or even your students be productive and impact positively on them. If you have any questions, we're open to questions. Yes.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Norbert Tembo, and thank you for this discussion. I am a lifelong student of organizations, and I find that we are always in agreement that you need good leaders, you need compassionate leaders. We all seem to agree. But it keeps happening that the people who get promoted are the Machiavellian leaders, the self-absorbed leaders, the narcissistic leaders, and we are not actually seeing this happen on the ground. And these caring, compassionate, people-centered leaders are often shunted aside, quite often.
That's true.
And you lose a lot of good people. So now what I would like to know is, what is the disconnect? Because we all agree that the narcissistic Machiavellian leaders are not what we need, yet we keep promoting them.
From the business aspect, why do you keep promoting them?
Well, I would say that's a very pertinent question, because I think this is a pervasive problem. In fact, it's probably in the corporate world, it's the biggest unspoken of problem. There are too many people in positions of leadership that don't have the leadership qualities to groom others. to develop others. And it goes back, in my view, to the culture. If the culture is permitting for such a leader to ascend, then there is a larger issue there, and that is an issue of what the culture is permitting. People who have it in their direct scope to be able to shape the culture of an organization, even they can awful struggle with it. So I can completely understand how many people feel frustrated in their careers seeing the wrong values getting promoted. You know, there was I was looking at this little, I think it was a GIF or a short video where the heading was, "This is what happens when the boss promotes the wrong person." And mid-flight, the air hostess, the pilot, the co-pilot, the attendants, they all put on their parachutes and they jump off of the plane. And all of the passengers are looking like, if all of the staff is off the plane, what's going to happen to us, right? So they abandoned ship at a time where it was needed most. So I think the disconnect is that leadership or potential leadership in organizations needs to work on their personal development. The road to developing your career, developing your health, developing a business, it's going to be paved with personal development. And that means you have to have the ability to introspect, to reflect, to look inwards, because if you cut off feedback, then you are putting that last nail in your coffin. You're not going to grow. That is the #1 tool, at least in the corporate world, that is going to allow you to reinvent yourself in a manner where you can continue to match the complexity of the challenges that are coming up. And you know, I completely recognize you know, the depth of your question, because we have to stop living under the fallacy that the world is a fair place. It isn't. It's an unfair world. Bad things can happen to good people. But as you work on your leadership, what will happen is your ability to tackle unfair situations and your ability to solve complexity will continue to rise. It'll continue to grow. But if there is a cultural problem, then, you know, if it's not in your direct scope to be able to shape the culture of an organization, then at some point you're going to land up leaving, because you haven't opened an institute to correct that particular organization. You have a career, you have ambitions, you have all of that. So therefore it becomes very important to be able to screen the culture of an organization before you take the decision to join them. And that's not something that happens because it's, again, not taught. You typically come to understand the culture of an organization after you join them. And by then you could feel trapped. You could feel this is not really what I signed up for. The way they marketed themselves and who they turned out to be are two very different things. The job description and what I actually have to do are not anywhere closely related. It looked very different on paper, and it's very different in real life. So
it would be a toxic environment for you, and it will drain you down. What we do is there's always the evaluation. I mean, you're evaluated across the year. There is the peer evaluation as a self-evaluation, and then there's the leaders who evaluate. So there are 3 different levels of evaluation. So if those people who are promoted and who should not be in that position, then there's definitely something wrong. It's not fair. So this is not an organization you would like to be part of.
And just to build on that, that's kind of the work that I do, is help teach how to screen an organization before you take the decision to join them. Because you see, if you approach an educational institute or a corporate, if you approach them as a job seeker, then you're not going to get the ground reality of their culture. Because if you look back on the last job that you take or the last opportunity you attempted, you're going to put your best foot forward because you want that opportunity, you want to secure the job. So you're going to market yourself to the organization. Similarly, under the context of wanting to get hired, the organization is also marketing to you because they also want to attract the best talent in the marketplace. So the very context is not designed for the truth to emerge. at least from a cultural perspective. So it's important to understand how to be able to bring that out. And there's an entire process that we dedicate to it so that people are coming from a place of much more information and much more education in being able to say that, yes, this would be an appropriate culture for me and I'll find the things that I'm looking for.
I think we should all take the training with Mr. Sawan on the skill of how to find the right place, right? Okay, any more questions? Still have like 40 seconds. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. You know, I was just thinking about how amazing would it be before you work anywhere to go into a rating where you can see the rating of the workplace, you know, because I mean, it feels like everything's so personalized. We can make reviews. You know, is there such a thing that exists?
There are platforms such as this, but again, you know, the problem is that those platforms can also be gamed. So unless you uncover it for yourself and, you know, using a methodology where you get that, that insight, you know, it's very hard. You go and read reviews and there's a dime a dozen reviews available for one and all. I mean, so.
It's the Amazon of the workplace, you know? Everyone's going to have an opinion. But thank you so much, guys. Great fireside chat to start out the afternoon right. Well done.